everyone out there in Banjo land, Mike Hedding here, coming to you today with just a little free banjo lesson. We're going to talk about an up the neck C7 lick that works out of the bar chord shape. And I really like this lick personally because it's not that hard once you get it down. And I think it's pretty cool. It kind of sounds like you know a lot about the banjo. And I always love licks like that are fairly easy to play, but they have some cool tension. And they kind of look and sound more advanced than they really are. So we'll break down the C7 lick. We'll start with kind of a beginner version of it, and then we'll look at expanding out and how I might use this more as an intermediate or advanced level player. All right, let's start breaking it down. Okay, so first things first, let's just make sure we've got the position down. And this is one of the biggest things I see beginners and people struggle with is they'll see a version of a larger chord and it'll only maybe have 2 out of the 4 fingers down or something like that. And they won't connect that in their mind to the larger chord shape. So this up the neck position feels totally random and kind of out there, where if you can connect it to a larger chord shape, it's just going to be that much easier to remember. So you can do this out of any bar chord shape, but I think of it as a C7 lick. That's just what my mind helps me remember it. So we're going to start with our index finger at the 5th fret, and I'm just fretting the top 3 strings. You can see my thumb kind of drops down to do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab our pinky way up on the 8th fret, and that's why you got to drop your thumb down to get your pinky out. 5, 5, 8. You hear that 8th fret, it has a lot of tension. That's the flatted 7th of the C. The root note gets back up there, so flat, the 7th would be here, flatted 7th is the bluesy note, is one of the bluesy notes rather, so that flatted 7. So that's the shape we're going to work out of. So like I said, I want you to get used to visualizing it with all 3 strings down rather, with your index finger. But the other way you might see it, for example, is only with the top 2 strings down. So now I've got the 5th fret on the 2nd string and then the 8th fret on the 1st string. And then I can use the 5th string, for example. Hear how that's very bluesy, right? Something like that, right? So remember that that's just this larger shape, and I'm just choosing not to go into that full chord because a lot of times my right hand isn't even playing that 3rd string. Like I said, for example, if I'm doing the Foggy Mountain roll, which is a very common roll with this lick, so in that example, my right hand's not even hitting the 3rd string at all. So I'm not going to waste that extra time turning my hand, because at a faster tempo, that's really going to slow you down. So that's the shape. You can also do it, if you don't like that bluesier sound, you could also do it with the 7th fret, which is like the 6th tone, which will be a little bit kind of jazzier, I would call it. So remember, we're just working out of this bar shape. You can slide it up 2 frets, that'd be like a D7. You could go all the way up to the 12th fret, which would be like a G7, right? The 5th string's not always going to work, but what I would do is try it with the 5th string, and if it sounds really outside of the scale, you know, depending on what chord you're on, that open 5th string might not always work, but that's when you just come back and start using the closed position chord. So you can do like the forward reverse roll. Something like that. You can do like a 2-measure forward roll is the one I like to use, like you could slide into it. What you could do is go back to like an open Scruggs lick. So that'd be like more of a beginner way. So you could do that lick, Scruggs lick, maybe a pinch lick. You could also do it on a D. using the fifth string, that it's called closed position, right? Because I'm not using any open string. So I could go up 2 frets, that'd be E7, F7, F sharp. You know, you can do it wherever you want once you get it down. The lowest spot you'll probably do it down the neck is probably the 2nd fret for like an A7. If you went down to the 1st fret, that'd be A flat 7. You probably won't use that often. But again, working out of the same A bar shape. So that's the shape that this lick works out of. And like I said, I would get used to envisioning this chord with all the strings down. The other way you might do it is maybe just the 3rd string and the 1st string down, and now I'm using the 5th string. But a lot of times, like I said, you'll see it with the 2nd string and 1st string down, which is a very cool tension. Let's break that down for a second. That'll be a little bit more intermediate level, but if we take those 2 notes that we're playing, the 5th fret on the 2nd string is an E, and the 8th fret on the 1st string is a B flat. So you don't necessarily have to remember that, but it's important how those notes, the E and the B flat, relate to our C. In this case, our root chord, home chord C. So that E is the 3rd note, 1, 2, 3, and then you have 4, 5, 6, flat 7. So the 3rd note of the scale and the flat 7, in kind of jazz blues theory, those are called what are referred to as the color tones. The 1s, 3, 5s, and 6s are kind of the more black and white, safer notes. And the 3s and the 7s, when you flatten those to make a minor or flatted dominant 7 like we've done here, that's where you get those color tension sounding notes. So that position, the 3rd and the flat 7, naturally has a lot of color or tension against the chord that we're playing, right? So one I like to do a lot is you can do like the Foggy Mountain roll down here, maybe like that double hammer-on. Almost like you're playing Foggy Mountain Breakdown. And then you can slide up and do that same roll on the C7. That Foggy Mountain roll works really nice with the slide as well. So you have, and then just some sort of lick back down to G, right? So that's all we're doing there. So that's not too hard. Same thing there, I'm only playing the top 2 strings with my left hand. I'm not going into that full chord. It just increases the chances I'm going to get a clunky note if I totally turn my hand, okay? Another way you can use that, so you can go back down. So any lick pretty much back down here. You could do that, or you could do... You just have to, the last note of this roll is your thumb. So you just have to make sure that descending lick back to G starts with either your index or middle finger. So I'm just doing something like this, which is kind of a variation on that Scruggs lick. So that's the lick that you get back down doesn't matter as much. Just make sure you don't start it with your thumb and you can make it work out. So something like that would be going back down to G. The other way I'll do it a lot is if I'm here in my C7, if I slide this finger now up to 8, I can go into this 8 and 9 G, like Cumberland Gap lead shape, which basically works out of this D position G chord here. So I'm here, now I can slide up. So I could go just back to a G here, or I can do a lick. I could do a lick too, so I could do something like... here. That's why the Foggy Mountain roll works really good, because I always have this last 5th string to change. Now I slide up. So, like I said, the particular lick isn't as important. You're just thinking I'm going from this shape here, the C7, up to this D-shaped G chord, and sometimes you'll see it again with just the two fingers on top. So very common. Another little more advanced way you could do it is you could go into some sort of melodic lick, you know, something like that, or something like that. So you're here. This works nicely up into this shape. You're basically up in this melodic position. If you want it more major, you can do it here. If you want it more bluesy, you could do... And I'll have this in the tab as well, so you can do that, or you can do a little descending lick. Doesn't really matter what lick you practice. What I would do is focus on the C7 and then just loop it with a metronome, and whatever you play for a descending lick doesn't matter. Even if you just do pinches to fill the space on the G. Something like that. So you could use that as a good way to do a melodic lick. You could also stay here. So this is kind of another position I'll use a lot. If you're right here in your C7, if you actually slide that 5th fret on the 2nd string up to the 6th fret, and I like using my middle finger then, that's like almost like a G minor shape. That sound. So that's kind of cool because you're going from this C7 to this kind of like G minor pentatonic bluesy sound. It's kind of similar to that. Something where you're playing with these minor pentatonic notes, but you're just doing it melodically. Something like that. So you're here, and then that can work up into this shape, which is a very common melodic position. The other thing I'll do a lot here, which is a little more advanced but kind of cool, is again, we have the 3rd note of the scale and the flatted 7th note of the scale. If you actually take this whole shape and slide it up 1 fret each, so now I'm going from 5 and 8 to 6 and 9. Okay? So what we're doing there is we're taking the 3rd and the flat 7 of C, and then when we move that position up 1 fret, that becomes the flat 7 and 3rd of G, but the 2 notes are flipped around. So it's kind of cool. So we have 3rd flat 7 here of C, right? If we slide up to 6 and 9, that's now the flat 7 of G and the 3rd of G, which is basically like this G7 chord here. Again, I'm only using the top string, so you could do something like that. That'd be like a C to a G7 jam, like a C7 to a G7 kind of sound, right? So it kind of has that theme of the lick, which sounds cool too. So you can do the Foggy Mountain Roll. Another one I like to do for that anything with the 1st string is what I call the reverse forward roll. It's the opposite of the forward reverse roll. So if you're in this C7 position, you go backwards, and then you hit the 1st string, and then you go forward. So it's like the opposite of a forward reverse roll. You go backwards, and then you hit the 1st string, and then you go forward. So you have... I like that one because it really accents the 1st string, and then you can slide it up. And you can do it on D, G7 here. And then you're always right here, and you can always go into a little melodic lick. You're kind of in this shape, and then you're out of that little melodic scale if you're more of an advanced player, or you can be up here. You can also start from above. of a scrug style, you could do something like that. Something like that. Another way I'll use it is maybe way up at the 12th fret for like a G7, so you could do C7 here. Instead of sliding up one fret and flipping the inversion like we just talked about, what you can do is slide up to 12. And then just practice a little ending lick. But what I would do is just get that position under your fingers, get used to it, and then just kind of what I call hang out in that position and just try a bunch of stuff. You can see from the video, I was throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, right? I don't have all the licks worked out. I personally don't like to plan every lick I'm gonna play. I found for me that's just not practical when I'm in a real life jam session to pull all these memorized licks out of my head. What I found for me that works better is having a position, so that C7 or the G7 or the D7, and then I trust my right hand and I trust hopefully my musicality in the moment to come up with something. So I always think of licks in terms of positions, and then I try and create basically a lick on the fly out of that position. Does it always work? No. But you're trying it. You got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and try again. But I just found it's better for me than trying to memorize a lick, because I can't pull a memorized lick out of my head in a jam session when there's tons of stuff going on. For me, I just found that wasn't very practical. So try the C7 lick. I'll include some practice tracks, some GD practice tracks. Oh, one more thing I didn't mention. One other way you could use this C7 lick is previously we've been using this in the context of the key of G, right? So we were going from a G usually to a C chord and then back to G and then maybe D and then G, right? So in that case, G was our root chord, the C7 was our 4 chord. The other way you could use this shape is actually a C7 leading to an F chord in the key of C. So now our home chord is C. So maybe I slide up to that bar shape and then I slide up to a C7. Now that leads to an F, right? And then back to C. G, C. So C, C7. You got F right here. C, G. So you can hear it works setting up that change now from C to C7, now to F. Or you could go to F7. So you can use it in different situations, right? You can use it when G is your root chord, and now the 4 chord is like it would be called a dominant 4 chord. So a C7, a song like Shuckin' the Corn uses that C7, but the song is still in the key of G, right? Example 2 is we used it now in the key of C to lead to the 4 chord. So we're not actually playing the 4 chord now as a 7th chord. We're using the C7 to set up. Now when I land on that F, that tension is resolved, right? So that C7 sets up the tension, and then the 4 chord F resolves that, and then we're back to C. So you can see a lot of these licks are used in different situations. One last thing is, same thing is that G7 could also lead now back to the key of C, right? So remember, a lot of these licks and ideas can be used in multiple situations with just a little bit of music theory. Don't learn too much music theory right at the beginning if you're a beginner, but a couple little music theory things can really take your playing to the next level, because you can use a lot of these things in multiple situations if you know how. All right, hopefully that helps you out. Throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. It's not all going to stick, but hopefully some of it will. Good luck and keep picking.